All right, hey there, CPO here, and it's time to start putting on the Excessive Industries rear bumper. It's going to take a little bit of work. It's not necessarily bolt-on. That's why they call it nearly bolt-on. It's going to require just a little bit of cutting and prep work in order to get the necessary stuff out of the way for this high tuck bumper. It's not a full cut, not like their Get to Cutting series, the GTC series, where you have to do some extreme cutting. This is a very mild operation we're gonna do. All right, so first I'm gonna need to make sure I clean up and get this wiring harness out of the way. I'll get rid of these brackets. These are just the original brackets from the factory bumper. They're not doing anything there. When I took off the factory bumper, I just bolted them back on there just because I didn't want to throw them away, and they were hidden with the install of the other bumper. I'm not sure how they're gonna work with the new bumper, so I'm just gonna get rid of them. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut the bottom of this frame off, which is probably the most involved part of this process. We're gonna cut the bottom. We're gonna get rid of some of this flange area here for where the cross members welded to the frame sides. We're gonna widen out some of these holes, and we're gonna cut a 45 on this frame end here. I think that's about it, other than I think we have to roll up this pinch seam on both sides. But like I said, not a lot, but you know, it does require a little bit of prep work before we can just throw that cool bumper on the back of our Jeep. All right, so to identify our cutting line, we're gonna use a straight edge, in this case, an aluminum level, across the bottom of the frame, and then that will show us where we need to cut off the bottom of this cross member. Now it's important to note that you want to be on the frame itself, not this little flange. See, your goal though is to get a line across your cross member that is equal to or higher than this point on your frame rail without taking off too much material, of course. To be honest with you, it's easier to be a little on the high side than it is the low side. If you're low, when you go to install the bumper, it may not fit. If you're high, you just have extra clearance and it will fit. So I've drawn my line here, and when I make my cut, I'm probably gonna cut on the high edge of this, just to give me a little wiggle room. And as you can see, the real goal here is to not get too close to these mounting tabs and leave as much structure as you can with that rear cross member. It seems really scary to cut into your frame, but this is literally all we're moving is the bottom. Now we've got to make the cuts on the front and on the rear, and that's going to be a little bit more challenging because we've got to get back in there. Now I'm not one of those dudes that cuts a lot of frames, so it's probably smarter to use a Sawzall or something like that. I'm going to use an angle grinder because I have an angle grinder. I don't have a Sawzall right now. And I've gotten pretty good at cutting straight lines in metal with this thing. So the only benefit I can see really to using a Sawzall is being able to cut through, if you're holding it straight, and get through both sides. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I'm sure somebody will chime in and tell me if it is. So because I'm cutting the outside and then I'm gonna go around the inside, I'm gonna have to remark a line on the inside, and then from the underneath here, cut across. Now my factory muffler is gone, so that helps me. I will probably pull out this exhaust just to get it out of the way, but I don't have a lot sort of hindering me from sitting down in here and cutting that line. But we'll see. This could go colossally disastrous, or it could work out just fine. All right, so that's what I'm cutting off, just this little bottom strip here. And I've got the edge to do in these flanges. But that didn't take too long, wasn't too painful. I did knock out some mud out of there. I got a little bit of mud in there. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and replicate that cut line on the back side and do the same thing from inside. right, so what I did here is just cut across the bottom of this just to be able to take out this center chunk, and that way I can focus a little bit more carefully on these sides. I've got the back almost all the way cut through, but there's a couple of spots. It's just hard to get into back there. This will allow me to see what's going on. Perfect, got it nice and scored and all the way through in a couple of spots. So I can see now where I need a little bit more attention on that backside, like right over here. Anyway, I'm just taking my time with this because I only want to do this once. There we go. There's the middle all out. And now I'll work on these edge pieces. Give you a little bit of a look at how that turned out down there. And you can see one of the key areas was making sure that these channels for these bolt holes remained intact, which they are. So a little more work to do, but ready to mount that bumper. All right, so the last thing I need to do now is get rid of this overlap here from the lower. And instead of using the cutoff wheel, I'm going to use the grinding wheel on this so I don't actually cut into the frame. So my goal is to get rid of all of this by just grinding it away. But as you can see, hopefully you can see, the whole intersection is now opened up for my frame cut. All right, that's one side, all nice and cleaned and flush with that frame rail bottom. I'll do the other side, and then I'll use that straight edge to make sure I don't have any low spots across the middle. But it's coming along nicely. Just, you know, taking my time, making sure I do it right. All right, the other side is done. This is the passenger side. And my only real concern here was making sure I didn't shoot sparks at the gas tank. So I was cognizant of making sure sparks went sort of out to the side, and that wasn't too bad. But now I can run a level across and see if I have any low spots that I need to deal with. All right, got my straight edge, which in my case happens to be a level. And basically, what I'm looking for is any low spots. And I don't see that I have any. All right, so there we go. There's the 45 on the frame itself. And there's a couple ways to achieve this, getting that angle right. you can trial and error it, sort of combination of what I did, which is measure and then clean it up later. The way I got that measurement is I have this square here, which you're probably familiar with seeing, and it normally has this ruler in like that. So I know this is a perfect 45. So basically you want from the bottom of where the cross member meets the frame rail, from that point forward, cut up 45. So the way I did this is I pulled this off of here, used that as a straight edge along the frame rail, and then put that up, lined it up against the straight edge just like that. I used the Sharpie to sort of do my initial marks, and now I'm cutting. I don't know how perfect this has to be. My assumption is there's just something that needs clearance right here, so 45 gets that clearance. I'm gonna try and make it as close as I can. So I got it pretty close with the cutoff wheel, and now I'm just using the grinder to sort of make it a little bit tighter. And obviously I'm just gonna repeat this effort on the opposite side. So there's my 45. You can see where I have it coming up. Basically from the point where this cross member meets, I've got the frame cut straight across with a 45 up from there. Hopefully that's a good visual for you. So just gives enough clearance without doing too much extreme cutting on that frame rail. Anyway, it's not that hard. You just got to commit to it and make it happen. And that's what I pulled off of there. So now I'll clean it up with a grinding wheel. All right, a little touch up. All right, so while the frame is drying, I'm gonna go ahead and start installing these lights for the rear. Now I had these cut out specifically because I had these lights I wanted to put in here. So with the paint and everything else, it's probably gonna be a tight fit. Oh, not bad. Not bad at all. And then I bought some fresh stainless steel hardware. And the good news is all of these bolt holes look like they line up. So thank you, Excessive Industries, for making this part easy. The last bumper I had to cut the holes myself, and that's always a pleasure. Let's see if this one goes in as smoothly. Oh, look at that. It's almost like it was made for these lights. I'm loving these DeWalt power tools. I should have gone cordless a long time ago. A little bit more of a cinch up. Boom, it's nice. All right, so I did go ahead and wire my rear lights and ran the cable, as you can see, back behind that plate. I just have to be careful when I put in my bolts, that those are out of the way, but I think that'll be fine. And then I'll leave a little tail on the, that would be the driver's side, to actually do the connection. But went ahead and did that, got that out of the way. It is nice, I can run it back behind there. So yeah, that's that. All right, so I do have to take care of a pinch seam right here. This is gonna need to be rolled over. I can do that quickly with a little hammer on both sides. And then I also need to drill out these holes, both inside and outside. Outside, this side facing back is 3/4 inch, and then the facing in is 1/2 inch. All right, so I went ahead and drilled the outsides to 3/4. Went and painted everything, painted the pinch seam where I rolled that up, painted these holes. I didn't have to open up anything on the backside. It said 1/2 inch, but it was already more than 1/2 inch. These are the bolts that are gonna come in through the backside and then fit into the bumper. Now the reason we're opening up to 3/4 inch is so you've got a little wiggle room there to get the hole started, because everything, you know, is going to be lining up depending on how well this thing was built at the factory, because as we all know, every Jeep rolls off the line a little bit different. So opening this up gives us a little bit of wiggle room, but the way it is on the back was more than 1/2 inch, so I didn't touch those. And then, like I said, just made sure that the washer and everything was big enough to cover that hole. So now we are officially ready to mount this thing. So now I get to add these frame inserts for actually mounting the bumper. These basically just provide captured nuts for the bumper to bolt into. These posts are simply to hold the plate in place and upright so it doesn't fall down. Very creative and thoughtful design to make sure that it's easier for us to actually install, because if you just had a plate in there and it falls over, obviously you start to have some problems. So this kind of helps keep things upright till we can get those bolts started. All right, so the long end is going to go in first, and I'm gonna take that to mean this. There we go. And as you can see, we've got our 4 bolt holes. These are the factory bolt holes for the factory bumper, which I have the bolts still for. And then you've got these 2 new holes here. And again, those posts inside just keep that upright until you can get things started. And one more thing Excessive Industries suggests is sort of making sure that the side of that frame rail is not pushed out, you know, pounded in. So the recommendation is to use a mallet just to make sure that's not bowed out. Perfectly straight, and I'm gonna have to go up higher. Dude, that was too easy. Okay, like down. Move. CJ, try and lift up on the bumper. I need I need the bumper to lift up. Oh yeah. All right, well, here we go. This is the Excessive Industries rear bumper on the Jake. And as you can see, I've got it installed and it looks amazing. Quite a bit more ground clearance. Basically, it's as if I don't actually have a rear bumper almost, which is kind of nice. It's at least a couple inches higher than the other bumper. And as you can see, the trailer hitch is up inside, so it doesn't hang down below like before. Just barely clears that 37. Man, that's a sweet looking bumper. And I think it really sets off the look of the Jeep too. Again, it's kind of a stubby with these wings that protrude out, and then up inside there are high lift jack mounting points. So both sides have a place for a high lift to attach to. I've got those rear lights, I've got the shackle tabs, and I've got that tow hitch. Now the tow hitch, interestingly enough, the pin, as you can see, the hole for the pin is inside. It's actually behind here. So what I'd have to do is put the, whatever it is I'm gonna use for a hitch inside the receiver, come back in here underneath there and slip the pin in from the backside. So this isn't something you want if you're using your Jeep for towing a lot. I don't tow a lot. I do use a bicycle rack from time to time. That's really why I have that hitch. But wow. And as you can see, I have the scallop for the spare tire, and it might have cleared without it, but it's nice to have it because you hate to get this far and find out your spare tire doesn't fit with your bumper. Plus, if I go wider, I'm set. Let me open up this tire carrier for you. There you go, you can see it now. Pretty awesome design. Again, this is the Excessive Industries. I had to do a little bit of prep work to get it up here, but man, it looks nice. And the good news is I didn't have to cut too much away from the rear frame and cross member, so I still have other bumper options if I choose to do that, but I don't know, man, I really like this one, so this one's gonna be here for a while. And now I gotta get to installing that front bumper. Wow. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one, which will be hopefully the front bumper.